welcome to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show, where we seek real answers for life's real problems. I'm Dr. Tim Jennings here with Lori Atkins and Karen Covey.
And today we're going to be discussing time in nature, the healing benefits of being outdoors. Most of us enjoy time in nature. Urban planners have found benefits in building into cities, parks. New York City's famous Central Park, for example, is an example of, as a New Yorker, I happen to be aware that New York represents 840 acres of downtown Manhattan property, real estate that was designated prime real estate.
Central Park.
Central Park,
Yeah.
did I mention that?
Yeah.
Central Park is actually reserved and preserved for New Yorkers and any visitors. So it's one of those things where this is recognized as a benefit beyond just personal activity and so on, and enjoyment of the trees and flowers. Are there spiritual and mental benefits associated with being outdoors?
So the health benefits associated with being outdoors have been shown in varieties of studies. People who take a walk out in the forest versus people who don't, studies show that they have lower heart rates, lower blood pressures, less stress levels than those who don't. People who spend a day and a half and camp out in the forest. They have lower stress hormone levels in their body. Their heart rate regulation improves. Their blood pressure improves. They are coping better with the activities of life with less stress if they've gotten time out into the forest. I think in Great Britain, there's been 100 schools I've established where kids take classes outdoors rather than indoors, and the data shows that these kids are learning faster, and they're less arguments, less conflicts, less talking back to teachers, more engaged. They're just doing better in an outdoor environment than in a confined classroom environment.
We're doing that in Chattanooga even here.
Right. So you're saying...
I was unaware of that here in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Two kindergartens are outdoor, full outdoors. Winter, spring, summer, fall.
I wouldn't count kindergarten as school. I'm talking actual scholastics and learning, but I get your point.
Yeah. So if I have the choice of walking outside or going to the gym and walking on a treadmill, it's more beneficial for me to walk outside.
Okay, now this is another great point. The data actually shows you do get better health benefits when you're exercising outdoors than if you do the exact same caloric expenditure inside.
Wow.
However, one study showed that you get the same benefits if you're looking at pictures of nature while you're doing it. So,
that's
so if you have a big mural of outside and you've created a mental image of being outside, then you can get still the same benefits of actually being outside.
Which they've done with many fitness applications that integrate with the treadmill, where you can pick a location worldwide from Google Maps or whatever, and you can physically see on the screen as if you were in the area, even if it's in a foreign country.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's
yeah.
why.
So I don't know if they've done it with that particular application or not, but the one study I saw, if you had images of nature while you were running or exercising.
What are some of the reasons for getting into nature and why that's beneficial?
Well, this may not surprise you having been from New York, but one of the reasons is that it has lower decibels. It's quieter. You see, one of the studies show that urban noise is greater than 65 decibels, just the average daily urban noise. And decibels of 65 decibels or higher is actually associated with worse physical health.
Wow.
Why would that be the case? By the way, passenger car at 65 miles an hour is 77 decibels. Going by it, 65 miles an hour, 77 decibels.
With you being outside or inside the car? Outside.
Yeah.
Yep, freeway, if you're 50 feet away from the freeway, that's 76 decibels. Okay, so the reason for this, we are wired for sounds to alert us to potential threats or danger. And even though we may be in an environment where we realize that it's not a danger to us, unconsciously the loud noises continue to heighten our stress level. We stay on a certain level of alertness. And this heightened stress amygdala firing activates stress pathways. Our heart rate picks up, our blood vessels narrow, our blood pressures increase, our catecholamine levels increase. And so chronic high noise is actually associated with health-related problems. So one benefit of getting into nature, and I don't know if you've ever had the feeling, but you get into nature and it's quiet. Do you feel the relaxing? Do you just feel yourself relax? You just unwind. I can feel it. I can just imagine it right now and can start feeling. I remember that feeling. It's just like the muscles just relax. So one of the benefits is the unwinding benefit.
Well, and I would say in today's environment, it's not just audible or decimal noise. it is information noise. I mean, we're in the 24-hour news cycle. We're in internet. We're in news feeds, constant
cell phones
notifications, cell phones. We're never unreachable. You know what I mean? So we have a level of noise from data and from information as much as we have from audible sounds.
You know, they did studies about children. They did studies at children in daycares that were close to traffic areas where they had high traffic noise. Those children had higher blood pressures and heart rates compared to children in the quieter areas. And that children with that have schools near airports with chronic aircraft noise actually had less. They scored worse on reading comprehension and attention than kids that didn't have the aircraft noise. So yes, even neurobiologically, attention, focus, and overall physical health can be impacted by the noise.
Interesting.
Well, and that you think about kids carrying cell phones now. I mean, younger and younger, and the pings and the alerts, the buzzes, and that they're the cacophony of noises.
Well, you just brought up another really important thing I think we need to talk about, and that is the unplugging from the I guess just unplugging.
Yes.
Getting out into nature where you don't take your cell phone and your iPad, and kids go out camping with the family now. They still take the iPad,
They have cellular service, so they have
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
yes,
They have
and
internet.
so they're still electronically plugged in, and that is not healthy. The real health is when you go on these weekend getaways or these outings in which you unplug. You let your brain, get off of the electronic media and electronic stimulation, as well as your whole body be out in a very healthy place. A lot of young people they've tried this with, and they don't like it at first. They resist it. There's like, I don't want to give up my cell phone. I don't want to give up.
Symptoms.
Yeah, but then after they've done it and they've been out there for a little while, they really like it. They feel so much better. They relax. They just feel better.
Right. I mean, at the latest Apple operating system on their phones actually has an app that you can set reminders that tell you how long you've been using the device and will encourage you or remind you to unplug.
Really? It's an automatic thing. You have to activate it.
You have to activate it and set up your limits, but it's very nice for parents that are wanting to control screen time for their kids and things like that.
I'm not in danger of running into that, I can tell you. I really spend
Don't
very little
overdo
time
the screen
on
time.
mine, no.
Yeah. Okay, so what about we had a previous show where we talked about meditation. What about the meditation and actually relaxing the mental part, getting away from the grind? How's that beneficial?
So the whole idea of quieting the mind is absolutely beneficial, but I want to talk a little bit about the other benefits about getting into nature is touching the earth. This idea when we get into nature, we are bioelectrical beings, and I think on a biological level, people understand that we have to have balance. You have to remain certain levels of hydration, certain levels of nutrients. You have to have vitamin C. If you don't get enough vitamin C, you get something called scurvy. And this was something that sailors used to have in the old days of the sailing ships. They would get away where they couldn't get fresh produce, and this is why I understand the British would put limes and they called them the limeys.
Yes.
The sailors are called the limeys because they would chew limes, and the reason they would chew the dried limes is because the dried limes would give them the vitamin C and they wouldn't get scurvy. And so we understand that to be in health, we have to have certain things in balance with ourselves. Well, we're not just, that's biological, the vitamins, the nutrients, the water, but that we are also electrical beings. Our brains have electrical waves, our hearts have electrical, and so we have electrical beings. And one of the things that's recently been discovered is that the Earth is a giant electron donor. The Earth itself donates electrons. Now you see, and everyone has seen these electron donations in something called lightning.
Yeah.
That's what lightning is. It's the discharge of electrons. But since in the Western world, since about probably 1960s and 70s, with the advent of the modern molecular polyesters and plastics and all of these types of things that we wear, our shoes, our sidewalks, our rubber mats, and all these types of things, we've disconnected from the Earth. Many people never actually touch the Earth. They're walking on concrete. That's not natural earth. They're walking on the grass, but they're wearing their shoes.
Yeah.
And that insulates them. And so there's really good data that when you touch the earth with your body, and the earth needs to have a certain level of moisture to it, so a super dry desert's not going to be really helpful.
How about sand on an ocean?
Yes, sand, but that's moist. See?
But sand is pretty
At
dry.
the beach, but there's moisture as you walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that it can conduct.
And this is one of the reasons why so many people feel healthier after going to the beach. Okay, they've been in the salt water. Salt water, is a very good conductor of
Yeah.
electrons. Okay, and so this is why I think people are getting so the electrons and the data shows when you touch the earth and you allow it to ground you, and so this is called in the literature, if you want to look it up, earthing or grounding. Earthing or grounding. And when you touch the earth, measurable things can happen very quickly. You can have lower heart rates, better blood flow, better vasculature, lower blood pressure, but you provide electrons to antioxidant enzymes, and you reduce oxidative stress on your body. So various pain conditions get better, aches and pains, and many of the chronic kind of things that people have complained about, many of them are showing significant improvement when they allow themselves to touch the earth again. So there's a lot of benefits from being out of nature.
How would you do that in everyday life?
I
I walk on my
difficult.
lawn, and there's a lot of other things in that lawn that I don't want, like
Yes.
dog poop.
Well, yeah, you have to be careful where you step, but if you do step in the dog poop, it'll still ground you.
I guess so.
Right. More electrons there.
More like, but
It's
you can actually hold to a stalk of corn if you were in a cornfield, and that touching that stalk of corn the corn's grounded, and you know how electrons, it's like the grounding wires on your house.
yeah.
Okay.
Whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
and that
Right.
and that lightning's coming.
Right,
You are
right,
grounded.
right. Yeah,
all right.
you don't want that much grounding. But touching trees, okay, this may be one of the reasons why
huggers.
this is maybe one of the reasons why the forests are so helpful. People
Yeah.
are actually touching the earth again and getting all these electrons into their system. So touching trees, so touching with your hands, various objects in nature that are touching the earth.
How about devices? I'm sure that are sold on Amazon that are rocks, or they're something.
You remember the pet rock is what you're talking about from the
Rock.
1970s?
It's like a mat or something that you're supposed to lie on.
No,
and-
that's different. So yes, there are
Diatomaceous
devices.
earth.
There are devices people are selling that you can put in your bed. That the device itself is the mat that has a copper wire that you have to run out of your house, and you have to stake the copper wire into the ground and ground it just like you do your house. And then that copper wire, this mat is touching the earth directly, and electrons can flow through the copper wire. And so when you lay on that mat and your skin touches the mat, you still need to touch it.
And that's scientific.
Yeah. So you can be grounded that way. You could just, go out there and get yourself as long as it's not during a thunderstorm.
I was gonna say, what happens
Yeah, I don't know.
A copper. You can get yourself a copper, maybe walking stick, and just stick it in the ground when you're walking, and maybe that'll be all you need to do. But this is very interesting. How nature is healing to us. We'll pick up and explore some more aspects of the health benefits of nature when we come back right after this.
Welcome back to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show. We've been talking about time in nature. Earlier, Lori asked a question about mental relaxation and meditation, and I think we need to pick up more on the meditation benefits that we have when we're in nature.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and we talked about meditation in a previous show, but in nature is a great place to do some meditation. There was a study of 102 women who went to a 5-day retreat and practiced meditation for 5 days, and they discovered that not only did they have lower heart rates and blood pressure, but better immune function and telomerase activity. Telomerase is an enzyme that causes the telomeres, which are the little end caps on your chromosomes, to extend, and that actually increases longevity. You're going to live longer if you have longer telomeres.
Long live your long
live
telomeres.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and this was from 5 days of a vacation with meditation. And what they discovered was all the positive benefits persisted for 10 months after the 5 days of vacation.
So 5 days was key. That seems to be a
No, that wasn't key. I don't know that 5 days was key. That's just this particular study was 5 days. There's no magic to 5 days. It's just that this study was 5 days, and they found that the 5 days of did it had these benefits and persisted. They haven't done any studies that can get it in 2, get it in 4, get it in 6.
Well, so taking the 5-day theory, the premise of 5 days, what if people can't get 5 days off?
Yeah, 5 days off in a row to do this.
Yeah.
My personal understanding when I tell my patients is that God prescribed one 24-hour period out of every 7 days for the purpose of doing this very thing. Each night is when we are to rest our bodies and sleep. But that sabbatical or Sabbath rest that the Bible describes and prescribes is for the mind to unwind, to relax, to unplug from the burdens. And I have so many patients that come to me, and these are good, most of them are Christian folks, go to church, but they're exhausted. They're worn out. They're tired. They work 5 days a week, and on the weekend they've got to catch up. They've got kids at
All
ball
the
games and
chores,
all this kind of stuff doing. And they go to church on Sunday morning, and as soon as church is over, they're right back at the grind doing this and that. And half the time at church, they might be doing something on their phone, trying to keep up with something else, and so their minds never rest. And so I tell them, you know what? God prescribed 1 day in 7 where you put aside all of the burdens, all of the work, all of the stress, all of the management, all of the organization, all of the housework, all of the stuff that just weighs you down to keep life going. Every 7 days you get a vacation. It's a vacation where you go, I'm off for the next 24 hours. I can put my feet up, I can unwind now. It'll be a great time to take my family. We're going to go out in nature. And in nature, maybe we'll have a picnic, and maybe we'll just kick back, and maybe we'll touch the earth, and maybe
hug a tree.
Yeah, hug a tree. Maybe we'll meditate a little bit, do some activities together. Certainly worship can be part of that, but it doesn't have to be part of that. But this idea of taking a rest every 7 days has actually been shown to be part of a plan that results in better physical health, better mental health, and better longevity. So you might have heard of Dan Buttner. He did the blue zones, which are, for those who don't know, he traveled around the world and found the 5 zones in the world that have the highest concentration of people living to be over 100. And it was Okinawa, Japan, Ikara, Italy. I can't remember the other two off the top of my head, but one of them was Loma Linda, California. The only one in the United States, Loma Linda, California. And
the blue is for hair, is it not? Is it blue hairs?
No.
No?
No, blue zones. Yeah.
I thought it was a reference to...
No, you're thinking of the Smurfs. You got that
No,
confused.
there is a colloquial
100-year-old
phrase.
ladies have
There's
blue
a colloquial
hair.
phrase for older folks.
Oh,
called
really?
Blue hairs.
Okay, well, I guess that's for the ladies, and since I don't know about that.
National Geographic about that.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear anything about the blue zones from that. And maybe you've got something there I've never heard of. So I don't know why they called it the blue zones.
Okay.
What was unique about Loma Linda University?
So what was unique about Loma from all the other four? The other four were all homogenous groups. Homogenous meaning they were all genetically basically related, Japanese or whatever.
Yeah.
But the Loma Linda group was the only heterogeneous group, people from all different backgrounds and different walks of life, and and this is a high concentration of Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah.
And they take a 24-hour period off and rest every week. And on the Blue Zones website, not the Adventist Church website, the Blue Zones website, it says, find a sanctuary and time to decompress. Observance of the Sabbath strictly occurs from Friday to Saturday night, giving Adventists a weekly time to focus on family, friends, God, and nature. And so, according to Buttner, one of the elements he identified that contributed to this group of people living longer than most other people do, and the data shows that just in general, Seventh-day Adventists live 7 to 10, 12 years longer than everyone else, is this weekly rest for the mind. So taking time off, getting back in nature, spending time with family, worshiping, communing together, this can be very healthy and very beneficial.
Interestingly, it wasn't about the diet. It wasn't about a vegetarian diet or how many nuts they ate or...
Well, I actually point out when we use this in lectures, so thanks for bringing that up. To be fair, Seventh-day Adventists are at higher percentages of vegetarians. They tend to exercise more. They have significantly less alcohol and tobacco and illegal drug use than the general population, and they have less obesity than the general population. So because of the other elements we just described. So the Sabbath as part of a larger lifestyle reality, I think has been demonstrated to
But that result or whatever was deemed from a secular
Yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
National
Yes.
Geographic.
Yeah.
It was not influenced by the
church.
study subjects.
Yeah.
But don't you think that God prescribed that by design, knowing that if he didn't, we would run ourselves ragged, that we would work ourselves to death?
I don't know. I'm going to have to, probably back up on that assumption, because I think the Sabbath was given before there was any exhaustion and any fatigue and any sin in the world, and in a sinless world without the need even for physical sleep.
So you're saying the Sabbath was given before all?
Yeah, if you believe the biblical account, it was given in Genesis of 6 days, and God rested on the seventh day.
So before sin, before
humankind, yes. But I think
in
his wisdom, he understood, and Jesus Christ later said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It was made for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons we today can benefit from that is the time to decompress and to unwind and to meditate and to put the burdens aside. That's true. I'm not sure that Adam and Eve in Eden were that worried, burdened, exhausted that they needed that special decompression time. It had other benefits to them.
You mentioned some of the things to be done on Sabbath, and I would say in general when we're outside. What about the benefits of laughter? One of the things about when you're with people in a community, whether they're biological family or family friends, or just this idea of losing constraints of, I guess, somewhat time because you're not plugged in, and to be with people with whom you can laugh, and the health benefits of that.
Yeah, and this is two things now. Let's talk about the laughter, and let's talk about the social connectivity. Okay, because they're separate. But the laughter, the again, Bible says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine." What does the science say? Multiple studies show that people who laugh regularly, when you laugh, it lowers your blood pressure and has dilates your vasculature. Like I think it's a 35% dilation of your vasculature when you laugh.
Would we have medicines that could do that so effectively without dropping it so much that you'd pass out? If you dilated all the blood vessels, you'd
but it lowers your blood pressure, whereas worry and anxiety do just the opposite. It constricts blood vessels and makes blood pressure go up. Cardiologists found that those who have been admitted to the hospital for a heart attack were significantly less likely to have laughed in the last week than those who do laugh regularly. The ones who laugh regularly are less likely to have a heart attack. So there's a lot of different studies to look at this, that it is very beneficial. But then you talked about it in the context of relationship. And the data shows that people who are socially connected were compared to people who were socially alone or isolated. They don't have social connections. And they took the white blood cells from both groups, and they looked at their gene expression, not gene sequences, but which genes are turned on, which genes are turned off. And they discovered that the socially isolated group had gene expression different than the socially connected group in a specific way. The genes associated with cancer-fighting genes were turned down in the socially isolated group, so they're more vulnerable to get cancer. And the antiviral infection-fighting genes were also turned down. Okay, so the ones who were socially connected were less likely to get cancer and less likely to get infections than the ones who were socially isolated. It has an actual epigenetic expression change, not just an emotion change. So there are real consequences to this.
Haven't they done some studies on that regarding addiction as well? Substance abuse and addiction related to people who are isolated versus people that are in community, that recovery is much more successful?
Yeah, there's no question. That's exactly true. In isolation, that's why in the 12-step programs, if you know, the 12-step programs always start out that we admit that we are powerless over our addiction and our lives have become unmanageable. It's not I admit that I am powerless. And the reason it's all stated in the plural there is because it's an understood reality, and this goes back even probably before the study you referenced, that addicts can never recover in isolation. One of the problems of addictions is that it tends to cause people to feel shame or guilt and will cause them to want to socially isolate and hide. And that only causes the internal turmoil to rise. In the healing plan of an addict, when people have addictions, the primary focus of the 12-step program is not abstinence from substances. The primary focus, if you actually ever read the 12 steps, are healing the brokenness of the heart and mind, the emotional brokenness that leads them to medicate themselves with substance. And so isolation only adds to the shame and the guilt, the inadequacy, the negative self-talk, which causes more dysphoria, more negative feelings, which causes leading to more substance use to medicate the self. And so, yes, it's critical that you come into relationship with people. And one of the critical things that are healing about 12 steps groups, when people have done something that they feel guilt or shame over, internal to themselves, they get fear that no one will love me if they knew. I can't be liked if people knew my secret horrible sin. And so what the 12 steps do, one of the things so powerful, I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic.
alcoholic.
Welcome,
Hi,
Joe. Hey, you know my secret and you still welcome me?
Yeah.
And it really
No judgment.
disabuses people of the shame to hide. And so it brings them into that. But that is relational. And it requires that they come into relationship and connection with people and have that fear mitigated. Unless the fear goes down, they begin healing on the inside. And this is what is really involved in part of the process of overcoming addiction. So you're right.
So real quick, as we wrap up, let's go back outside. Talk to us. Are there any spiritual precepts that we can draw from being out in nature? Even if someone is not a believer in God, is there still things that they can draw from nature that tell us something about God?
Yeah, so in nature, we can see two antagonistic principles. We can see the principle of beneficence, the principle of self-sacrifice. We see mother animals sacrificing to protect their children. We can see the principles of giving, the principle of love, the water cycles we've talked about, the air cycles we've talked about. But we can also see an antagonistic element in nature. We can see poisons, we can see thorns, we can see toxins, we can see predators, we can see very harsh things in nature.
Yeah.
And from a biblical worldview, that's exactly right, because the biblical worldview teaches that God originally designed everything in a perfect, other-centered, loving, self-sacrificial way. But the principle, the principle of sin is the antagonistic principle of survival, the fittest drive,
Right.
which seeks to get for oneself at the exploitation of others. So in nature right now, we can see two antagonistic principles warring in this world. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Take some time, get back to nature, put your feet in the sand, float in the ocean, hug a tree, spend some time with your family,
And
laugh, and take some time each week to rest your mind, decompress, and rejuvenate. Visit us again, timjenningsmd.com.